Welcome to our 6th episode of our Star Trek game. I hope you enjoy this storyline. I hope to keep it going for some time. So sit back and enjoy. Space: The Final Frontier. These are the voyages. Season 4, Episode 1. Into the Meat Grinder. Time: 1 year into the Two Thrones War. Location: the Breen border/Cardassian front. The Challenger drops out of warp in a dark sector of space, far from the safety of Starbase 12. Admiral Quinn is on the bridge, coordinating a massive Alliance fleet movement. You are down in the cavernous main shuttle bay. The air smells of ozone, burning plasma, and fear. Sirens are wailing. Wolverine Squadron, prep for launch. McAllister's voice barks over the hangar intercom. He's currently coordinating the deck crews, making sure the torpedo tubes are loaded. You step into the cockpit of your Danube runabout. The tactical board is already lighting up with red dots. A massive Cardassian hive fleet has ambushed a Klingon supply convoy, and the Challenger is here to break the siege. Your comms crackle. It's your wingman, Lieutenant Mercer, sitting in the cockpit of his Peregrine fighter in the launch tube next to yours. Wolverine 2, Systems Green, Captain, Mercer says. You can hear the nervous adrenaline in his voice. Reading 40-plus hive interceptors swarming the Klingon freighters. It's a mess out there. Just give the word and I'll clear a path for you. Admiral Quinn's voice cuts in on the priority channel. Captain Bishop. The Klingon flagship is taking heavy fire. I need the Wolverines to punch a hole through the Cardassian fighter screen so the Challenger can bring its main phaser lances to bear on their cruisers. Do not get bogged down in dogfights. Hit them hard and keep moving. The launch doors open, revealing the void of space flashing with weapons fire. Would you like to order the squadron to launch in a tight, defensive wedge formation to protect your runabout, or break them into chaotic, scattered pairs to confuse the hive's automated targeting sensors? We launch in a wedge formation with Wolverine 1 and 2 sitting in a pocket behind the lead. We fly in hot and ready to disrupt the attack. The launch. Wolverines, form up, you order, gripping the flight yoke of your Danube-class runabout. Standard wedge. 3, 4, and 5 take the point. Mercer, you're with me in the pocket. Let the Vanguard absorb the initial sensor locks, then we punch through. Copy that, lead, Mercer says, his Peregrine sliding into position just off your starboard nacelle. I've got your 6. The launch sequence initiates. The magnetic catapults hurl the 14th Tactical Wing out of the Challenger's massive hangar bay into the cold void. You hit the thrusters, feeling the heavy, armored sluggishness of the runabout compared to the agile fighters around you. But what the Danube lacks in speed, it makes up for in armor and heavy quantum torpedo tubes. You are the sledgehammer, they are the scalpels. The battlefield. Space is a chaotic web of amber Cardassian disruptor beams and green Klingon torpedoes. The Klingon supply convoy, 3 heavy freighters and a heavily damaged Vorcha-class cruiser, is completely surrounded. The Cardassian hive fleet isn't flying like normal pilots. They don't break off when their shields drop. They don't panic. The Hideki-class attack fighters move in terrifying, mathematically perfect swarms. Hive swarm dead ahead. Mercer calls out. They're moving to block the corridor to the Klingon flagship. Hold formation, you bark. Wait for it. The dice roll, Command/Fleet Tactics. Skill, 6D, Captain Bishop. Difficulty, high, 20. The hive's automated targeting is perfectly synchronized. Roll, 456352 is equal to 25, solid success. The clash. Now. Break and engage. The point of your wedge shatters into chaotic, unpredictable vectors just as the Cardassian disruptor volley slices through the space you were occupying a microsecond before. Your Peregrines dive into the swarm, their phaser banks lighting up the dark. Because the Vanguard drew the fire, the pocket is wide open. You and Mercer blast straight through the gap. Target lock acquired on 3 hive fighters, Mercer reports, his voice tight with G-force. Taking the shot. Thwack thwack thwack. Mercer's pulse phasers tear through the Cardassian fighters with surgical precision. He doesn't waste a single shot. The kid is a natural-born killer in a cockpit, but you notice he's drifting too far forward, chasing the kills and leaving your heavier, slower runabout exposed. Mercer, rein it in, you snap. Don't chase. You're breaking the defensive perimeter. Sorry, Captain, Warning. Target lock. Your runabout's computer chimes in a flat, mechanical tone. The escalation. You've punched the hole, just as Admiral Quinn ordered. The Challenger is moving in behind you, its massive phaser lances powering up. But the Hive adapts instantly. A Cardassian Galer-class cruiser, its hull mutated with the strange, organic resin of the parasite technology, rotates on its axis. It ignores the Challenger and points its main forward disruptor banks directly down the corridor you just cleared, aiming straight at the crippled Klingon flagship. If that cruiser fires, the Klingon are space dust, and the convoy is lost. Bishop, that cruiser is charging main batteries. McAllister's voice crackles from the Challenger's tactical bay. The Admiral needs 30 seconds to get the lances in range. You have to stagger that cruiser's shields. Your runabout is the only ship carrying the heavy quantum torpedoes capable of rocking a Galer-class cruiser. But the cruiser is bristling with point defense turrets. If you fly straight at it, you'll be shredded before you can launch. The bait and switch, leadership/tactics order Mercer to fly ahead and pull an evasive maneuver right across the cruiser's bow. He's fast enough to survive, barely, drawing the point defense fire so you can slip in and deliver the payload. Tests Mercer's nerves and your command. Mercer, listen to me, you say, your voice cutting through the comms chatter with the cold authority of a seasoned combat veteran. That Galer class is charging its main battery. I need you to run interference. Paint its nose. There is a split second of silence on the channel. To paint the nose means flying a fighter directly across the firing arc of a capital ship's main guns, close enough to draw the automated point defense turrets, but fast enough not to get vaporized. It's the kind of maneuver they tell you not to do at the academy. Copy that, lead, Mercer says. His voice is tight, but he doesn't hesitate. Painting the nose. The maneuver. Mercer's Peregrine fighter banks hard, its impulse engines flaring a brilliant white. He dives out of the protective pocket and accelerates straight toward the mutated Cardassian cruiser. The Hive's tactical network reacts instantly. Dozens of amber disruptor turrets on the Galer's hull swivel, tracking the fast-moving fighter. He's drawing their fire. McAllister yells from the Challenger's tactical bay. The space around Mercer erupts into a deadly grid of energy beams. He is flying on pure instinct, throwing the Peregrine into chaotic spins and jukes. You can see his shields flaring as glancing hits strip away his protection. He is a blur of motion, but he's buying you the seconds you need. I'm in position, you say, pushing the heavy throttle of the Danube-class runabout forward. The dice roll, command/leadership, Bishop. Skill, 6D. Difficulty, high, 20. Coordinating a complex strike while your wingman is under heavy fire requires perfect timing. Roll, 5, 6, 4, 5, 3, 6, wild. Reroll wild die equals 2. Total, 31. Critical success. The strike. You ride the wake of Mercer's distraction. Because the Galer's point defense grid is entirely focused on the erratic Peregrine, your heavier, slower runabout slips into firing range unnoticed by the automated systems. Target lock, your computer chimes. Fire full spread, you order. 4 heavy quantum torpedoes streak from the runabout's launchers. They don't just hit the cruiser's shields, they hammer the exact same spot in rapid succession. The blue-white detonations bloom against the Galer's forward deflector array. The cruiser shudders violently. The sheer kinetic force of the quantum warheads overloads the local shield grid. The amber glow of its main disruptor battery sputters and dies as power is automatically rerouted to stabilize the collapsing shields. Shields are down on their forward arc. Vry reports from the Challenger's bridge. Admiral, we have a clear shot. Fire the lances, Quinn's voice booms over the fleet channel. The heavy hit. The USS Challenger slides into the corridor you cleared. Its massive saucer section glows with terrible energy. 2 continuous, blindingly bright phaser lances erupt from the dorsal emitters. They strike the unshielded forward section of the Cardassian cruiser. The beam doesn't just impact, it cuts. It slices deep into the mutated hull, igniting secondary explosions deep within the ship's infrastructure. The Galer-class vessel groans, its structure failing under the sustained assault, and then it detonates in a massive fireball. Target destroyed, Vrij says coolly. The Klingon flagship is safe. Good work, Wolverines, Admiral Quinn says. Now clean up those fighters. The cause. You pull the runabout into a steep climb to avoid the debris field of the destroyed cruiser. Mercer, sound off, you say. Static crackles on the line. Mercer. Wolverine 2, report. I'm here, lead. Mercer's voice comes back, breathless and shaky. Shields are gone. Port Nacelle took a grazing hit. I'm venting plasma, but she's flying. You look at his telemetry on your board. His Peregrine is a mess, but he survived the bait. He did exactly what you told him to do, and he held his nerve. The remaining Cardassian Hive fighters, recognizing the loss of their command cruiser, abruptly changed tactics. They stop swarming the Klingon and turn their attention to the Challenger and your fighter wing. They're re-engaging, Captain, McAllister warns. 40 bogies inbound. It's a furball. You are in the thick of it now. The main battle has just begun. We defend the freighters. I call Mercer to line up with me. We are the command and rescue for any downed fighters. Wolverines, collapse the perimeter. Form a phalanx around those Klingon freighters. You order, your hands flying across the runabout's tactical console. Nobody chases kills today. You are a wall. If they want the freighters, they bleed for every kilometer. Copy, lead. Phalanx formation, the squadron acknowledges, their agile Peregrine fighters sweeping back to form an interlocking grid of phaser fire ahead of the lumbering cargo ships. Mercer, fall in on my wing, you command. Your bleeding plasma and your shields are gone. You are officially off the front line. We are command and rescue. We watch the board, and if anyone goes down, we go get them. Understood, Captain, Mercer says. He pulls his smoking fighter alongside your heavily armored Danube-class runabout. I've got my sensors linked to yours. I'll be your eyes. The dice roll, command/formation flying. Skill, 6D, Captain Bishop. Difficulty, high, 20, coordinating a defensive screen against a synchronized hive swarm. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 5 wild. Dash, 25, success. The meat grinder. The Cardassian hive swarm hits the Wolverine line like a wave of angry hornets breaking against a glass wall. The discipline of your pilots holds. The Peregrines use their pulse phasers to create a web of covering fire. When a Cardassian fighter tries to slip through to the freighters, 2 Wolverines cross their streams, vaporizing it instantly. From your vantage point in the pocket, you manage the flow of the battle, calling out vectors and warning pilots of blind spots. Mercer is calling out target locks, his voice growing steadier as he watches you orchestrate the chaos. Captain, we have a breach on the port flank. Mercer suddenly shouts. 3 Hideki-class attackers slipped past Wolverine 4. They're making a run on the lead Klingon freighter. Before you can order a redirect, the tactical board flashes red. Mayday, Mayday. This is Wolverine 5. I've lost main power. Life support is failing. You look out the viewport. Ensign Vance's fighter is tumbling end over end, a trail of black smoke venting from its main fuselage. He took a direct hit from a Cardassian disruptor, and 2 more Hive fighters are breaking off from the main swarm to finish him off. At the same time, the 3 Hive attackers Mercer spotted are seconds away from torpedoing the Klingon freighter. The command choice. You are the rescue element. You are sitting in a flying tank with a tractor beam, and Mercer is sitting in a crippled fighter with functional weapons but no shields. You cannot be in 2 places at once. What are your orders, Captain? I send Mercer out on the attack, but remind him to play it safe. Then I go after Vance. As soon as we can, we beam him aboard. Mercer, the bombers are yours. Hit and fade, do not joust them. You bark, throwing the runabout's throttle forward. You have no shields. Use your thrusters, paint them, and break off. I'm getting Vance. Copy that, lead. Hit and fade. Mercer's Peregrine snaps into a tight barrel roll, peeling away from your wing and rocketing toward the 3 Hideki-class attackers. The dice roll, Mercer, piloting and gunnery. Skill, 5D, piloting, /4D plus 2, gunnery. Piloting roll, 4, 5, 3, 2, 6-20, excellent evasion. Gunnery roll, 5-4-6, 1-16, solid hits. Mercer flies like a man possessed. Without shields, a single disruptor bolt will vaporize him, but he doesn't give the Hive's automated targeting sensors a predictable flight path. He strafes the lead Cardassian bomber, his pulse phasers chewing through its port impulse engine, sending it spinning out of formation. The other two attackers immediately break off their run on the Klingon freighter to swat at the annoying, unshielded fighter buzzing around them. Mercer lured them away perfectly. The rescue. Meanwhile, you dive the heavy Danube-class runabout straight into the crossfire. Ensign Vance's crippled Peregrine is tumbling wildly. Two Hive fighters are sweeping in for the kill shot. "Vance, this is Bishop. I'm locking onto your comm badge," you shout, your hands flying over the runabout's transporter console while you steer with the other hand. "Prepare for emergency transport." "Captain, life support is gone. I can't." Vance's voice is weak, choking on smoke. "I've got you." The dice roll, Bishop, Transporter Ops/Technical. Skill, 4D, Technical, plus 1D, Runabout Advanced Sensors, equals 5D. Difficulty, Very Difficult, 20. Beaming a moving target out of a spinning unshielded ship while under fire. Roll, 5, 6, 4, 5, 5 wild. 25. Perfect execution. You slam the runabout right between Vance's fighter and the incoming Hive interceptors. Amber disruptor bolts hammer against your forward deflectors, rattling your teeth. The runabout's armor holds, but the alarms are screaming. To use the transporter, you have to drop your shields for exactly 1.5 seconds. Dropping shields. Energizing. The runabout's deflector grid drops. You are completely exposed to the vacuum and the enemy fire. You hit the transport sequence. A split second later, a Cardassian disruptor beam slices right through the space your shields used to occupy, grazing the top of the runabout's hull and sending a shower of sparks raining down into your cockpit. Bzzz hum. The transporter chimes. Behind you, in the runabout's small aft compartment, the familiar blue shimmer of the Federation transporter resolves into the coughing, soot-covered form of Ensign Vance. "Shields up!" you yell, slapping the console. The deflector grid snaps back into place just as another volley of Hive fire hits you. Outside the viewport, the Cardassian interceptors unleash a point-blank spread into Vance's empty Peregrine fighter. It detonates in a blinding flash of plasma. If you had been a second slower, he would be atomized. "Vance is secure," you report over the squadron channel. "Mercer, what's your status?" "I led them on a chase, Captain, but I'm out of real estate." Mercer grunts over the comms. "They're bracketing me." You look at the tactical board. Mercer successfully pulled the bombers away from the Klingon freighters, but now the two remaining Hideki attackers have him boxed in. Without shields, he can't take a hit, and his impulse engines are redlining just to keep ahead of them. Admiral Quinn's voice suddenly cuts over the main channel. "Bishop, the Klingon convoy is clear. The Challenger is moving to intercept the main Hive swarm. Get your fighters back to the barn. We are preparing to jump to warp." The command choice. You have Vance bleeding in the back of your runabout. Mercer is trapped in a deadly game of tag, and the Challenger is preparing to leave the combat zone. How do you extract your wingman? Order Mercer to fly directly at you. You charge the Hive fighters tailing him head-on, playing chicken with the heavy runabout to force them to break off or eat a faceful of quantum torpedoes. Roll tactics/gunnery. "Mercer, line them up and bring them to me." You order, your voice dead calm. "Fly straight down my throat. Do not flinch, and do not alter course. I will clear your tail." "Copy that, lead." "Bringing them down the pipe," Mercer replies. His voice shakes, but his trajectory is perfectly straight. You push the heavy throttle of the Danube-class runabout to maximum, flying directly at your own wingman. Behind Mercer's smoking Peregrine fighter, the two Cardassian Hideki attackers lock on. They are automated, logical, and ruthless. They see a damaged fighter flying in a straight line, and they prepare to execute the kill. They don't compute that the heavy gunship flying toward them is about to play chicken. The dice roll, Starship Gunnery/Tactics. Skill, 5D, Gunnery, plus 1D, targeting computers, equals 6D. Difficulty, very difficult, 20. Firing past your own wingman's unshielded hull to hit the pursuers. Roll, 4, 6, 5, 3, 5, 4 wild. 27, incredible shot. The joust. Hold steady, Cole, you whisper, watching the distance close rapidly on the tactical overlay. 100 kilometers. 50 kilometers. 10 kilometers. Mercer's Peregrine screams past your cockpit viewport, so close you can see the scorch marks on his canopy. The instant he clears your firing arc, you are staring dead into the amber disruptor banks of the two Hive fighters. Eat this, you snarl and slam the firing stud. You don't fire phasers. You fire two heavy quantum torpedoes, point blank. There is no time for the Hive's automated sensors to evade. The torpedoes impact the lead Hideki fighter, obliterating it in a brilliant blue-white sphere of raw energy. The shockwave catches the second fighter, ripping its port wing off and sending it spinning uncontrollably into the void. But you don't escape clean. Before the first fighter died, it managed to fire a single, heavy disruptor bolt. The amber beam smashes into your forward deflectors. The runabout shields hold, but the sheer kinetic transfer overloads the forward EPS conduit. The console in front of you explodes in a shower of sparks and superheated plasma. You throw your arm up to protect your face, but a chunk of slag catches you hard in the left shoulder. You grit your teeth against the searing pain, your flight suit singed, but your right hand never leaves the flight stick. Lead. Captain. Mercer yells over the comms, seeing the explosion through his rear sensors. Are you hit? I'm fine too, you grit out, ignoring the blood soaking into your sleeve. Just lost a console. Get your ass in the barn. We're going home. The return. You and Mercer limp into the cavernous main hangar of the USS Challenger just as the massive starship engages its warp drive, leaving the debris field of the Chintoka border behind. The deck crews swarm your ships before the landing skids even cool. Medics rush into the back of your runabout with a grav stretcher to pull Ensign Vance out. He's pale and unconscious, but he's breathing. You pop the hatch of the runabout and climb down. Your left arm hangs limply at your side, the shoulder of your uniform charred black. Mercer practically falls out of his Peregrine cockpit and sprints over to you. He looks at your arm, his face pale. Captain, I left you exposed, Mercer says, his cockiness completely evaporated. If I had flown a tighter evasion pattern. If you had flown a tighter pattern, you would be space dust, Lieutenant. You cut him off, your voice firm but not unkind. You flew exactly as ordered. You drew the fire. You trusted me to clear your tail, and I did. This. You gesture to your bleeding shoulder. This is just the cost of doing business with the Hive. Go get checked out by medical. You did good today, Cole. Mercer nods, swallowing hard. He looks at you not just as a commanding officer, but as a legend who just bled to keep him alive. The lesson is sinking in. The war room. Time, 2 hours later. Location, USS Challenger, Admiral's Mess. Your shoulder has been treated with a dermal regenerator and wrapped by Dr. Crusher, or your chief medical officer. It throbs, a dull reminder of your mortality. You stand at the strategic planning table with Admiral Quinn and Lieutenant Commander McAllister. We saved the Klingon convoy, Quinn says, his face grim in the blue light of the holographic map. But we lost 4 fighters, and the Challenger took minor armor damage. And this was just a skirmish, Sarah. Quinn manipulates the map. The red territory of the Hive is spreading like a virus. Intelligence confirms your worst fears, Quinn continues. The Cardassian Hive and the Romulan Hive have achieved a subspace neural link. They are coordinating. They are building a massive staging ground in the Trellis sector, a dead zone filled with navigational hazards. McAllister points to the map. If they amass a fleet there, they have a straight shot at the Klingon homeworld of Konois. If Konois falls, the Federation is surrounded. Quinn looks at you. The Challenger cannot fight a two-front war. I need to know where to deploy our task force next to break their momentum. Helm, set a course for Starbase 12. Maximum warp. You order, settling back into your command chair. You try to hide the wince as your left shoulder throbs. The dermal regenerator did its job, but the underlying tissue damage from the plasma surge is deep. It's going to ache for a long time. Course laid in, Captain, the helm officer replies. The Challenger streaks to warp, leaving the burning debris of the border skirmish behind. The Boneyard Fleet. Location: Starbase 12, Sector Hub, time, 3 days later. When the Challenger drops out of warp, the space around Starbase 12 is unrecognizable. It is choked with ships. But this isn't the shiny, state-of-the-art fleet of peacetime. This is an act of desperation. Starfleet has emptied the surplus depots at Quailier 2 and the surplus yards of Mars. You stand by the viewport in Admiral Quinn's ready room. Outside, you see century-old Excelsior-class cruisers, blocky Miranda-class frigates, and battered Akira-class carriers that were supposed to be decommissioned after the Dominion War. Engineering crews in EV suits are swarming over them, hot-wiring their warp cores and bolting modern phaser banks onto their aged hulls. "The Ghost Fleet," Quinn says, stepping up beside you. "We're pulling everything out of mothballs. If it has a hull and a warp drive, we're putting a crew on it. The Klingon are doing the same with their old Brel birds of prey." "Will it be enough?" you ask, rubbing your stiff shoulder. "It has to be," Quinn replies grimly. "Your ship is patched up, Captain. We smoothed over the armor plating and replaced the blown EPS conduits. It's not pretty, but she'll hold. And we got you your replacements." The fresh meat. You take the turbolift down to the main hangar deck. The deck is deafeningly loud. Sparks rain down from welding torches as the deck crews finish the rush repairs on the Challenger. More importantly, 6 brand-new Peregrine fighters are being magnetically clamped onto the launch racks. Standing next to them are the replacement pilots. They look incredibly young. Nuggets, fresh out of the academy, fast-tracked to the front lines. They look terrified as they stare at the massive, scarred interior of the carrier. Lieutenant Cole Mercer is standing in front of them. He has a PDD in his hand, and he isn't smiling. "I don't care what your simulator scores were," Mercer is barking, pacing the line. "The Hive doesn't fly like the computer. They don't have a self-preservation instinct. If you fly solo out there, you will die. You stick to your wingman like glue. You follow the commander's lead, and you don't blink. You watch from the catwalk." A slight smile crosses your face. The kid is growing up. He survived the Crucible, and now he's trying to keep the next batch alive. You walk down the stairs. Mercer snaps to attention. "Captain on deck." The Nuggets scramble to stand at attention. "At ease," you say. You look at Mercer. "Good speech, Lieutenant. Think they're ready to fly?" "They will be, Captain," Mercer says firmly. "I'll run them through the ringer in the holodeck on the way back to the front." "See that you do. Wolverine 2, you're officially flight leader for the new squad. Get them integrated." Mercer's eyes widen slightly at the responsibility, but he nods. "Yes, ma'am." Return to the border. Location: the Cardassian/Federation Demilitarized Zone. Time: 48 hours later. The Challenger arrives back at the front line, supported by a ragtag escort of 2 old Miranda-class ships and a Klingon bird of prey. You are stationed near the Badlands, a volatile region of plasma storms that borders Cardassian space. Dropping out of warp, Quito announces from the helm. "Sensors to maximum," you order, taking the center seat. Your shoulder gives a sharp twinge of pain as you sit, a reminder that your reaction times in a cockpit might be compromised. "Captain," Vroy says from the tactical station, her brow furrowing, "I'm not reading a fleet, but I am reading a massive energy signature, spanning the entire border sector." She projects the sensor data to the main view screen. The Hive hasn't just been building ships. They have been building a wall. Stretching across the border are hundreds of massive, automated pylons. They are projecting a dense, interlocking field of tachyon radiation and subspace static. "It's a subspace inhibitor net," Admiral Quinn says, stepping onto the bridge. "It extends for light years. We can't jump to warp through it, and we can't scan past it. They've drawn a line in the sand. If we can't warp through, how do we push the offensive?" McAllister growls. "We don't," Vroy says, pointing to the map. "There are gaps in the net. Choke points. If we want to cross into Cardassian space, we have to fly through those gaps at sublight speeds." It is a classic trap. The Hive has fortified the gaps. If the Challenger and its fleet try to push through, they will be flying into a kill box. But if they sit here and do nothing, the Hive will continue to build its forces behind the wall until they are ready to roll over the Federation. The strategic choice. You are the task force commander. You are staring at the Hive's defensive wall. I talk with the Admiral about running missions on the fence network. If we can dismantle the net, then we can force the bugs to stretch out their forces. You step away from the center chair and gesture for Admiral Quinn to follow you to the tactical table at the back of the bridge. McAllister and Vrye join you. We don't go through the choke points, and we don't risk the fleet in the Badlands, you say, bringing up a holographic schematic of the subspace inhibitor net. We hit the fence itself. We dismantle the pylons. Quinn studies the map, stroking his chin. The pylons are heavily shielded, Captain. And if we attack the net, we'll ring the dinner bell. The Hive will swarm us. Exactly, you reply, leaning your good arm on the table. You ignore the dull ache radiating from your left shoulder. Right now, they are massing behind this wall, building their fleet in safety while we wait. If we start punching holes in their fence, their automated logic will force them to respond. They'll have to stretch their forces thin to defend the perimeter and send repair crews. We turn their own wall into a meat grinder. McAllister grins, a predatory gleam in his eye. Guerrilla warfare on a macro scale. I like it. We bleed them by 1,000 cuts. Vrye taps the console, bringing up a scan of a single pylon. The network is redundant. If we just blow up one pylon, the adjacent ones will increase their output to cover the gap. To actually breach the net, we need to take out a cluster of 3 simultaneously, or hit a primary relay node. Then we hit a relay node, you decide. Admiral, keep the Challenger and the Mothball fleet back here in the shadows. If a Hive cruiser shows up, you swat it. But the precision work. That's what the Wolverines are for. Quinn nods slowly. It's a sound strategy, Captain. Make it happen. The hangar deck briefing. You gather Wolverine Squadron in the ready room just off the main hangar. The veteran pilots are mixed with the fresh-faced Nuggets. Lieutenant Cole Mercer stands near the front, looking attentive. All right, listen up, you say, projecting the target relay node onto the screen. We are going hunting. Target is a primary subspace inhibitor node. It's roughly the size of a space station, heavily armored, and surrounded by automated defense turrets. You look directly at Mercer. Lieutenant Mercer, you are taking point. You will lead Gold Flight, 3 pairs of Peregrines. I will be in the Danube runabout, hanging back to provide heavy quantum torpedo support and command and control. But this is your run, Cole. You call the attack vectors. Mercer blinks, surprised by the sudden weight of command for a primary strike, but he straightens his posture. Understood, Captain. We'll crack it open. Your shoulder throbs sharply. You reach up and casually massage it, masking the wince. You can't fly like a hotshot forever, you think. It's time to see if the kid can lead. We go with the attack and ambush, also have another officer pilot the runabout and have a medic on board for the transporter and medical needs. We're not just here to break windows, Mercer, you say, changing the holographic display to show a wider tactical view. We're here to set a trap. Option 2, the spiderweb ambush. You tap the display, highlighting the massive subspace inhibitor node and the dense asteroid field floating near it. Gold Flight will execute a precision strike on the node's power couplings, just enough to cripple the subspace field and trigger their automated distress beacon. Then you go dark. Drift into the asteroid field and power down everything but life support and passive sensors. The Hive will send a repair detail and a fighter escort. When they are elbows deep in the pylon circuitry, you pounce. Mercer studies the map, his eyes narrowing. He's doing the math. It's a solid ambush, Captain. But if they send a cruiser instead of fighters? If a cruiser shows up, you stay dark and wait for the Challenger to bring the big guns, you assure him. Your job is to bleed their fighter screens and repair assets. You take a slow breath, letting your arm hang by your side. And I won't be flying your wing today. A murmur goes through the pilots. Mercer looks up, surprised. Captain, my shoulder is still compromised from the Chintoka run. You lie smoothly. It's not entirely a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. You need to see if he can lead without you holding his hand. My reaction times aren't 100%, and I won't be a liability in a dogfight. Lieutenant Shran will pilot the runabout. You gesture to an Andorian pilot standing near the back. Shran, you're flying the Danube. You'll have Ensign Pell from Medical manning the aft compartment and the transporter. You are the command and control and rescue element. Mercer calls the shots. Mercer straightens, the weight of command settling squarely on his shoulders. Understood, Captain. We won't let you down. Dismissed. The Spiderweb. Location: Sector 441, the Cardassian border. Target: Subspace Inhibitor Node Alpha 9. You are on the bridge of the Challenger, watching the tactical display. Admiral Quinn stands beside you, his hands clasped behind his back. On the screen, you watch the tiny blips of Gold Flight, 6 Peregrines and the heavier Danube runabout, slip into the sensor shadow of the asteroid field near the massive Cardassian pylon. Wolverine leader to Challenger, Mercer's voice crackles over the secure comms. We are in position. Node Alpha 9 is dead ahead. Automated turrets are active, but they haven't spotted us. Proceed with the strike, Lieutenant. You order, gripping the edge of the tactical table. Gold Flight, arm pulse phasers. On my mark. Mark. The 6 fighters streak out of the asteroid field, their engines flaring. They don't aim for the heavily armored central core. They target the delicate plasma regulators ringing the outer rim. The dice roll: Mercer, Command/Tactics. Skill: 4D, base, plus 1D, surprise, equals 5D. Difficulty: moderate, 15, hitting a stationary target before the turrets track them. Roll: 4, 5, 2, 6, wild. Dash, reroll wild die dash, 3. Total: 4 plus 5 plus 2 plus 6 plus 3 is equal to 20, success. The bait on the view screen: tiny explosions blossom along the rim of the massive pylon. The amber glow of the subspace inhibitor field sputters, flickers, and dies. Direct hits on the regulators, Vry reports from the ops station. The field in Sector 441 is down. We have a hole in the net. And they rang the bell, Quinn notes. I'm detecting a localized subspace transmission from the node. It's an automated distress call. Wolverine leader, the trap is set, you broadcast. Go dock. Copy, Challenger. Gold Flight, power down to minimums. Drift back into the rocks. Now we wait. The ambush. You wait for 20 tense minutes. The bridge is silent except for the hum of the warp core. Then, the long-range sensors chime. Vessel approaching, Vry says, her fingers flying over the console. Cardassian signatures. It's a repair tender, escorted by a squadron of 12 Hideki-class interceptors. They took the bait, McAllister growls. You watch the tactical display. The Cardassian tender, a blocky, utilitarian ship, moves slowly toward the crippled pylon. The 12 Hive interceptors fan out, forming a defensive perimeter. But they are looking for threats in open space. They aren't scanning the asteroid field where Mercer and his squadron are powered down, cold and silent. The tender extends mechanical arms and begins cutting into the damaged regulators. Now, Wolverines. Mercer's voice suddenly barks over the tactical channel. Light him up. The dice roll: Mercer, gunnery/surprise attack. Skill: 4D plus 2. Difficulty: moderate, 15. Roll: 5, 6, 4, 2-17, solid hit. 6 Peregrine fighters power up simultaneously, roaring out of the asteroid field at point-blank range. The Hive interceptors, caught entirely off guard by ships appearing from inside their own defensive perimeter, scramble to react. Mercer leads the charge, his pulse phasers tearing through the lead Hideki fighter before its pilot can even raise shields. The new Nuggets follow his lead perfectly, crossing their fire to vaporize 2 more interceptors in the opening volley. Shran, take the tender. Mercer orders the runabout. Acknowledged, Lieutenant, the Andorian pilot replies. The heavy Danube runabout lumbers out of the rocks, locking its heavy quantum torpedoes onto the stationary Cardassian repair ship. Two torpedoes streak across the void, slamming into the tender's engineering section. The ship shudders violently, secondary explosions rippling across its hull as its repair bays ignite. The ambush is a brutal, textbook success. The Hive forces are in disarray, taking heavy losses. The complication. But the Hive mind is not a normal enemy. It doesn't panic. It computes. "Captain," Vroy says urgently, her voice cutting through the cheers on the bridge. The repair tender just sent a microburst transmission before it lost power. It wasn't a distress call. It was a tactical update. To who? Quinn demands. To them, Vroy points to the sensor board. 3 massive, green signatures drop out of warp on the edge of the sector. Romulan Deridex-class warbirds, McAllister says, his voice going flat. 3 of them. They must have been patrolling the Cardassian border on joint maneuvers. The trap just snapped shut on the wrong prey. Mercer's 6 fighters and 1 runabout are now facing 3 of the most powerful capital ships in the quadrant. And the warbirds are already charging their main disruptor banks. "Challenger, we have massive contacts." Mercer yells, his voice tight, requesting immediate assistance. "We send in 2 of the mothballs to take out more pylons while ordering the Wolverines to go through the Badlands." Mercer takes the opportunity to attack some of the pylons on his way out. Once the fighters are clear, they are to regroup and return to the Challenger. "Admiral, give me the USS Majestic and the USS SeaTac," you say, your voice cutting through the rising panic on the bridge. "Send them in, but not at the warbirds. Have them flank the sector and hit the adjacent inhibitor pylons. We're going to tear their fence wide open and force those warbirds to choose between chasing our fighters or losing their border." Quinn's eyes widen slightly at the audacity, but he nods. "Execute." You tap the comms. "Wolverine leader, this is actual. Do not engage those warbirds. I repeat, do not engage. Break off and dive into the Badlands. Use the plasma storms to mask your warp signatures." "And Cole." "Yes, Captain." Mercer's voice is strained over the static of the approaching Romulan vessels. "Take out the western pylons on your way into the storm. Leave them a mess to clean up." "Copy that, actual." "Wolverines, form on me. We're going mudding." The dice roll, Bishop, Fleet Tactics. Skill, 6D. Difficulty, high, 20. Coordinating a multi-vector strike and retreat under extreme pressure. Roll, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 2-25, success. The diversion. Space tears open on the port and starboard flanks of the Cardassian sector. 2 mothballed Miranda-class cruisers, their hulls scarred from decades of service, drop out of warp. They don't even look at the 3 massive Deridex-class warbirds. Instead, they unleash a synchronized barrage of photon torpedoes into the subspace inhibitor pylons adjacent to the one Mercer just crippled. The Hive Mind's tactical network instantly stutters. The warbirds, which were aligning their main disruptors to vaporize the Wolverine squadron, suddenly halt. Their automated logic forces them to prioritize the structural integrity of the border wall over a handful of fighters. 2 of the warbirds lumberingly alter course to intercept the Majestic and the SeaTac. Mothball elements are drawing their fire. Vroy reports. "The gap is widening. Tell them to hit and run. Don't let those warbirds get a tractor lock," you order. The Badlands run. Down in the combat zone, Mercer seizes the window you just bought him. "Gold Flight, arm your remaining pulse phasers. Shran, keep that runabout tight to our 6. Mercer barks. "I'm flying a brick through a hurricane, Lieutenant, but I'm right behind you," the Andorian pilot replies from the Danube. The dice roll, Mercer, piloting/command. Skill, 5D, piloting. Difficulty, very difficult, 25. Strafing a target while entering a Class 4 plasma storm. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4 wild. -24, barely a miss/success with complication. The 6 Peregrine fighters and the heavy runabout streak toward the swirling, angry orange and purple clouds of the Badlands. Just before they hit the storm front, they pass a secondary inhibitor pylon. The squadron unleashes a withering strafing run. Mercer's fire cuts the pylon sensor array in half. The Nuggets, following his lead perfectly, dump their remaining torpedoes into the pylon's base. It detonates, sending a shockwave of debris outward. But they cut it too close. As they dive into the plasma storm, the shockwave from the exploding pylon catches Wolverine 6, one of the Nuggets. His fighter is shunted violently sideways into a swirling plasma eddy. "I'm caught. Helm isn't responding," the young pilot screams over the comms. Behind them, the third Romulan warbird realizes the fighters are escaping and fires a blind disruptor volley into the storm. "I've got him!" Shran yells. The Danube-class runabout, living up to its role as the heavy rescue element, plunges into the eddy. Shran fires the runabout's heavy tractor beam, grabbing the spinning Peregrine fighter just as a Romulan disruptor beam vaporizes the space it was occupying a second before. Dragging the fighter behind it, the runabout disappears deep into the sensor-scrambling interference of the Badlands. The warbird halts at the edge of the storm. Its massive artificial singularity drive is too volatile to risk inside the plasma anomalies. The Hive watches in cold, silent frustration as its prey escapes. The regroup. Time: 3 hours later. Location: safe space, rendezvous point Delta. The Challenger sits quietly in deep space. On the long-range sensors, you watch 7 distinct warp signatures approaching. 6 fighters and 1 runabout drop out of warp and glide into the massive open doors of the main hangar bay. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Your shoulder gives a dull throb, but you ignore it. "All birds are in the nest, Captain," McAllister says, a rare smile crossing his scarred face. "The Majestic and SeaTac have also retreated safely. We blew a hole 3 sectors wide in their fence." Admiral Quinn steps up to the center chair. "You forced the Hive to react to us, Captain Bishop. We dictate the terms of this war now." You head down to the hangar bay. The deck crews are already swarming the scorched, plasma-scarred fighters. Mercer is standing by his Peregrine, his flight suit drenched in sweat. He's talking to the Nugget who got caught in the eddy, a hand firmly on the young pilot's shoulder, calming him down. Shran and the medic, T'Pel, are securing the runabout. Mercer sees you approach and calls the squadron to attention. "At ease," you say. You look at the damage to the ships, then at the pilots. They are exhausted, but they are alive. And their eyes have changed. They aren't Nuggets anymore. They are veterans. You look at Mercer. "You made the right calls today, Lieutenant. You brought them all home." "Only because we had the Danube watching our backs, Captain," Mercer says humbly. "And your diversion. We wouldn't have made it to the storm without the Mothball fleet." Mission debrief. Primary objective: subspace net breached. The Hive will spend weeks trying to repair the multi-sector gap, stalling their offensive buildup. Secondary objective: Mercer successfully commanded his first major strike, proving he can lead under fire. Assets: no ships lost. Rewards: CP +5, total 25. The war is settling into a brutal rhythm. You've proven the Alliance can hit back, but the Hive mind is adapting. A week later, you are in the Challenger's sickbay. Dr. Crusher, or your CMO, is running a deep-tissue osteoregenerator over your shoulder. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Captain," the doctor says, looking at the bio-bed readouts. The plasma burn from the Chintoka run caused severe nerve degradation. The dermal layer is healed, but the motor nerve pathways in your left arm are fraying. You're experiencing micro-tremors, aren't you? You look at your left hand. It is perfectly still, but it takes a conscious, exhausting effort of will to keep it that way. "I can manage it, Doc," you say quietly. "You can manage it from the center chair of a starship," the doctor corrects. "But if you get behind the flight stick of a fighter or a runabout in a high-G combat maneuver, your arm will lock up. It's a matter of when, not if. I am officially recommending you be grounded from all tactical flight duties." Before you can argue, the ship's red alert klaxons begin to wail. "Captain Bishop to the bridge," Vry's voice echoes over the intercom. Intelligence just intercepted a heavily encrypted Hive transmission. The Cardassians and Romulans aren't just linking their fleets. They've captured a Starfleet shipyard. The hook for Episode 3, the Hive has taken over the Antares fleet yards. They aren't just building their own ships anymore. They are retrofitting captured Federation vessels with Hive technology. Worse, Starfleet intelligence believes they are trying to assimilate the USS Prometheus, the experimental multi-vector assault ship. If the bugs get their hands on that tech, the war is lost. We go with options 3. The compromise. The tactician. You accept you can't fly combat, but you refuse to stay on the Challenger. You will ride in the Danube as the mission commander, but you make Shran the permanent pilot. You run the tactical board with your good arm. With the success with the pylon net, the same tactic is being implemented all across the net to fully destroy it. Another strike fleet responds to the shipyard. Our fleet is stretched to prevent reinforcements from arriving. This means more flights for Wolverine Squad. Our mothball fleet gains 2 perimeter action ships and a converted cargo ship as a carrier for 2 additional squadrons. Doc, you win the battle, but not the war, you say, sliding off the biobed. You pull your uniform jacket over your injured left shoulder, wincing slightly. Log it. I am officially stepping down as primary pilot. But I am not sitting in the center chair while my pilots get chewed up. Shran takes the helm of the Danube. I run the tactical board. I can manage a sensor grid with one hand. The CMO sighs, knowing better than to argue with you when you have that look in your eye. I'm prescribing a neural brace for that arm, Captain. If you try to lift anything heavier than a PADD, you'll tear the remaining nerve fibers. You nod, accepting the sleek metallic brace the doctor clamps over your forearm and bicep. It locks your arm in a comfortable, but immobile, position. Understood. Bishop out. The anvil. You step onto the bridge of the Challenger. The mood is electric. The success of the Wolverine Squadron's strike on the pylon has become the blueprint for the entire alliance. Captain on the bridge, Vry announces. Admiral Quinn turns from the main viewer. It's a full-scale offensive, Sarah. Task forces across the sector are tearing down the subspace inhibitor net. The Hive's automated logic is fraying, trying to plug 1,000 holes at once. And the Antares fleet yards? You ask, moving to the tactical table. The Third Fleet is moving in to retake Antares and secure the Prometheus, Quinn says, pointing to a massive red sector on the holographic map. But the Hive knows how important that shipyard is. They are pulling reserve fleets from deep within Cardassian space to reinforce it. McAllister leans over the table. That's where we come in. The Challenger task force is the anvil. We are parking ourselves in the Tarquin Gap, the only fast warp corridor between the Hive reserves and Antares. We hold the line. Nothing gets past US. We're going to be outnumbered, you note, looking at the projected enemy fleet movements. We're stretching our task force to the breaking point. Command knows, Quinn replies with a grim smile. Which is why they sent us the rest of the boneyard. McAllister punches a button, and 3 new ship silhouettes appear on the board. 2 Ares-class perimeter action ships, the USS Myrmidon and the USS Centurion. They're old border patrol gunships. Basically flying phaser banks. And they brought a converted Ptolemy-class cargo hauler, the USS Icarus. They gutted the cargo pods and turned it into an escort carrier. It just dropped off 2 fresh fighter squadrons, the Jackals and the Wraiths. You look at the board. 3 squadrons. 36 fighters. 1 heavy runabout. More flights for the Wolverines, you say softly. We are the wall, Captain, Quinn says. Prepare your wings. The Tarquin Gap. Time: 72 hours later. Location: the Tarquin Gap, a narrow corridor of clear space bordered by intense gravity wells. You are sitting at the aft tactical station of the Danube-class runabout. Your left arm is locked in its medical brace. Your right hand dances across the console, managing the sensor feeds for 3 entire fighter squadrons. Up front, Lieutenant Shran is flying the heavy gunship, his blue hand steady on the yoke. Ensign T'Pel is managing the transporters and damage control. Wolverine leader, this is actual, you broadcast. Status: Wolverines are green, Captain, Mercer's voice comes back. He's flying point, his peregrine idling in the dark space ahead of the fleet. Jackal and Wraith squadrons are holding the flanks. The Myrmidon and Centurion have their phaser banks locked on the corridor. You look at the deep space sensors. The Hive reinforcements are coming. I have contacts, you announce, your voice turning to ice. Massive warp signatures. They're dropping out of subspace at the edge of the gravity wells. I'm reading Cardassian Galar-class cruisers, troop transports, and a swarm of fighters. At least 60 Hideki attackers and Romulan Scorpion interceptors. Let them come, McAllister's voice growls from the Challenger. The dice roll, Bishop, Fleet Command/Sensor Ops. Skill, 6D, Command. Difficulty, High, 20. Coordinating 3 distinct squadrons and 2 gunships against a massive swarm. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 3, 5, 6, Wild. Reroll Wild die 4. Total, 33. Outstanding command execution. The Meat Grinder. All wings, engage. You order. Space erupts. The Hive Vanguard, a wave of 60 fighters, crashes into your blockade. Because you are perfectly coordinating the sensor data from the runabout, your pilots aren't fighting blind. You feed targeting solutions directly into Mercer's HUD. Wolverine Leader, you have 3 Scorpions attempting to flank high. Break left, Jackal Leader will cover your right. You command, your right hand sliding across the tactical display. Copy, Actual. Breaking left. Mercer executes a flawless snap roll, his pulse phasers shredding the lead Romulan fighter. Behind the fighter screen, the USS Myrmidon and USS Centurion open up. The old perimeter action ships live up to their names, laying down a devastating curtain of continuous phaser fire that prevents the Hive troop transports from advancing. But the sheer numbers are overwhelming. The tempo is brutal. For 2 hours, the battle rages. You are sweating in the runabout's tactical chair. Your right hand is cramping from the rapid data entry. Every time a Federation fighter takes a hit, you have Shran dive the runabout into the fray, using your heavy quantum torpedoes to clear a path so T'Pel can beam the pilot out before their ship explodes. You've already pulled 3 Jackal pilots and 1 Wraith out of the fire. The aft compartment of the runabout is starting to look like a triage center. The breaking point. Captain! Shran yells from the helm. The Hive cruisers are shifting tactics. They are ignoring the Challenger. You look at the board. Shran is right. 2 Cardassian Galar-class cruisers are ignoring Admiral Quinn's flagship. Instead, they are turning their main disruptor banks directly onto the converted carrier, the USS Icarus. The Icarus has terrible shields. It's a cargo ship holding the fuel, munitions, and deck crews for your fighter squadrons. If it blows, the Jackals and Wraiths have nowhere to rearm, and the explosion will take out half your defensive line. They're sending a kamikaze wave of fighters to punch a hole through Wraith Squadron so the cruisers can get a clear shot at the carrier, you realize. Actual, this is Wraith Leader. A panicked voice comes over the comms. We can't hold them. There are too many. Mercer's voice cuts in. Actual, Wolverine Squadron is engaged in the center. If we pull off to help the Wraiths, the troop transports will slip through the gap to Antares. You have to make a choice. You have a heavy runabout with quantum torpedoes, 2 perimeter gunships, and Mercer's elite squad. We do a compromise, execute the Gordian knot and pull in the Myrmidon for extra firepower. We must keep the reinforcements from getting through, even if it costs our lives. Mercer, hold the center! You bark, your voice echoing with finality in the cramped, smoke-filled runabout. Do not let those troop transports through. Myrmidon, shift your fire to the Cardassian cruisers. I want a sustained phaser barrage on their forward deflectors. Shran, take us in. We are the shield. Shran doesn't hesitate. His blue hands grip the flight yoke, his face set in grim determination. Plugging the gap, Captain. It has been an honor. T'Pel, you say, not looking back at the medic and the rescued pilots in the aft compartment. Strap in tight. The Gordian knot. The heavy Danube-class runabout breaks formation and accelerates directly toward the 2 massive Cardassian Galar-class cruisers. You are a gnat charging a pair of lions, but you are a gnat carrying heavy quantum torpedoes. Myrmidon is engaging, you call out, watching your tactical board. The USS Myrmidon unleashes a blinding, continuous beam of perimeter defense phaser fire. The energy washes over the lead Cardassian cruiser, overwhelming its forward shields. The amber glow of the Hive's deflectors flickers and collapses. Their shields are down, you yell. Shran, line it up. Give me the throat. The dice roll, Bishop, gunnery/command. Skill, 6D. Difficulty, Heroic, 25. Firing a killing blow while flying a suicide trajectory. Roll, 6, 5, 4, 6, 3, 5 Wild. Dash, Wild explodes, 4. Total, 33, devastating critical hit. The dice roll, Shran, piloting versus incoming fire. Skill, 5D. Difficulty, very difficult, 20. Roll, 3, 2, 4, 1, 1, Wild. Complication, -11, failure/catastrophic hit. The sacrifice. You lock the targeting scanners with your one good hand. Firing full spread. 4 quantum torpedoes streak from the runabout's launchers, crossing the void in a fraction of a second. Without their shields to protect them, the torpedoes punch straight through the mutated hull of the lead Cardassian cruiser and detonate deep inside its engineering section. The capital ship arches backward, its spine cracking as the warp core breaches. It erupts into a miniature sun, the shock wave violently shunting the second cruiser off course. The Icarus and Wraith Squadron are saved. You stopped the kamikaze wave. But the second cruiser, listing and heavily damaged by the explosion of its sister ship, manages to fire one last, desperate volley from its ventral disruptor banks. A beam of pure, superheated amber energy, thick as a redwood tree, slams directly into the Danube runabout. Brace! Shran screams. The runabout's navigational deflectors shatter instantly. The ablative armor flashes to vapor. The kinetic transfer hits the small ship like a meteor. The tactical console in front of you doesn't just spark, it detonates. A massive surge of EPS plasma blows the console apart. The blast throws you backward out of your chair with terrifying force. You hit the aft bulkhead, hearing the sickening crunch of bone. Alarms scream. The cabin loses gravity. The air is instantly thick with acrid black smoke and the hiss of escaping oxygen. Captain! T'Pel yells, fighting against the 0G to reach you. You try to move, to speak, to reach for the comms, but your body refuses to obey. The pain isn't sharp, it's an overwhelming, crushing weight. Your vision is swimming in red and black. Through the shattered viewport, you can see the stars spinning wildly as the crippled runabout tumbles through space. Actual report. Mercer's voice is screaming over the open channel. Challenger, the runabout took a direct hit from capital ship ordnance. They are adrift and venting atmosphere. This is T'Pel. The Vulcan medic's voice cuts in, uncharacteristically frantic. The captain is down. Catastrophic trauma to the chest and spine. Life support is failing. Passing the torch. In the cockpit of his Peregrine fighter, Lieutenant Cole Mercer watches the tumbling, burning wreck of your runabout. The woman who taught him how to survive, who bled to keep him alive at Chintoka, is dying in the dark. For 2 seconds, he freezes. The battle rages around him. The Cardassian troop transports are still trying to push through the center. The second cruiser is turning its guns toward the Myrmidon. If he breaks to save you, the line falls. The Hive gets to Antares. He remembers what you told him on the hangar deck. I will be the command and control. But this is your run, Cole. You call the attack vectors. Mercer slams his fist against his console, his eyes burning. Challenger, lock a tractor beam on that runabout and drag it into your bay. Mercer barks, his voice suddenly hard, carrying the unmistakable weight of command. Myrmidon, Centurion, finish that second cruiser. Wolverines, Jackals, form on my wing. We are plugging the center. Nobody gets past US. Copy that, Wolverine leader, McAllister's voice replies from the flagship, heavy with grim respect. Tractor beam locked. Medical teams are standing by in the main hangar. Mercer throws his throttle to maximum, leading the 30 remaining fighters of the Alliance directly into the teeth of the Hive transports. He flies like a demon, his grief channeled into pure, surgical violence. You lie on the deck of the runabout, the darkness finally pulling you under, but the last thing you hear over the comms is Mercer holding the line. Epilogue. The New Reality. Time, 48 hours later. Location, USS Challenger, Intensive Care Ward. The steady, rhythmic hiss of a biobed respirator fills the dimly lit room. Lieutenant Cole Mercer stands rigidly at attention near the door, his flight suit smelling of ozone and recycled air. The Battle of the Tarquin Gap is over. The Hive was repelled. Antares is safe. But the cost was staggering. Admiral Quinn stands next to the biobed, looking down. You are alive, but barely. A massive cybernetic brace encases your chest and spine. Your left arm is completely immobilized. The plasma burns took a terrible toll. You are conscious, looking up at the ceiling, but you know the truth even before the chief medical officer speaks. She will live, Admiral, the CMO says quietly. But the spinal trauma and the neurological damage from the plasma surge are permanent. With intense physical therapy, she will walk again. But she can never endure the G-forces of spaceflight, and she can never serve in a combat theater. Quinn nods slowly. He looks at you, his eyes filled with profound sorrow and respect. You held the gap, Sarah. You saved the fleet. He turns to Mercer. The young lieutenant looks devastated, staring at his boots. Lieutenant Mercer, Quinn says, his voice breaking the silence like a whip. Mercer snaps his head up. Sir, Captain Bishop has given everything she had to this war. But the war isn't over. The Wolverines need a commander. The task force needs a CAG who knows how the Hive fights. Quinn steps forward and presses a small box into Mercer's hand. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Lieutenant Commander. You are the new CAG of the Challenger. Captain Bishop will be transferred to Starfleet Command on Earth to oversee strategic planning once she is stable. But this wing is yours now. Mercer looks at the box. Inside are the solid pips of a lieutenant commander. He looks past Quinn, meeting your eyes from across the sickbay. You manage a faint, tired smile, and give him a single slow nod. It's yours, kid. Mercer swallows hard, his jaw setting. I accept, Admiral. I won't let her down. End of an era. Captain Sarah Bishop's frontline story concludes here in a blaze of absolute glory. She survived the unsurvivable, saved the fleet, and passes into legend as a mastermind tactician who broke the Hive's border wall. Main character shift. You are now playing Lieutenant Commander Cole Mercer. Role, Commander, Air Group, CAG, USS Challenger. Current ship, Peregrine-class heavy fighter, call sign, Wolverine leader. The burden. He now has to lead the entire fighter wing in a brutal, grinding war of attrition, living up to the massive shadow left by his mentor. Starting stats for LCDR Mercer, 30 CP total to build his veteran status. Dexterity, 4D, energy weapons, 5D. Mechanical, 4D, piloting, 6D, gunnery, 5D plus 2. Knowledge, 3D, tactics, 4D. Perception, 3D, command, 4D. Strength, 3D. Technical, 3D. How would you like to begin Mercer's first day in command? We can start with a tense briefing, a memorial for the fallen, or throw him straight into the fire of a new Hive offensive. Use the points in gunnery and level as high as we can after raising command to 5D. We see LCDR. Mercer looking at a data feed board on Starbase 12. It's displaying the killed in action lists. We should have Max say something inspirational to him. They go through a briefing about the sector and the next battle objective. Character sheet update, LCDR. Cole Mercer. The crucible of the Tarquin Gap and the weight of his new rank have forged Mercer into a hardened leader and an unparalleled marksman. Command upgrade, increased from 4D to 5D. He now commands the respect of the entire air group, not just his squad. Gunnery upgrade. The remaining points are poured into his targeting instincts. Increased from 5D plus 2, 6D plus 1. He doesn't miss. He is a surgeon with ship-to-ship weapons. The Wall of Heroes. Location, Starbase 12 Promenade. Time, 1 week after the Battle of the Tarquin Gap. The promenade is crowded, but it is eerily quiet. Starfleet personnel in gold, red, and blue uniforms walk with hurried, purposeful strides. The war has stripped away the sterile, peaceful exploration vibe of the station. It now feels like a forward operating base bracing for a siege. Lieutenant Commander Cole Mercer stands perfectly still in the center of the concourse. He is staring up at a massive, glowing holographic display screen mounted on the bulkhead. It is the Kia and MIA feed. The list of names scrolls endlessly, a blue cascade of text reflecting in Mercer's eyes. Entire ship's rosters. Wings of fighters. Ensign Vance. Lieutenant Shran. He rubs his chest absent-mindedly. He can still see the Danube-class runabout taking that capital ship disruptor beam. He can still hear Captain Bishop's voice telling him to hold the center. The solid third pip on his collar feels like it weighs 50 pounds. You stare at that long enough, kid, you'll start looking for your own name. Mercer flinches slightly and turns. Lieutenant Commander McAllister is standing next to him. The scarred Marine is out of his tactical armor, wearing a standard duty uniform, holding 2 steaming mugs of Ractigino. He hands one to Mercer. "Thank you, sir," Mercer says softly, taking the mug. McAllister looks up at the scrolling names. 36 fighters we sent into the gap. We brought back 22. Good pilots. Mac turns his head, his hard eyes fixing on Mercer. But we held the line. And Antares is still ours. It doesn't feel like a win, Mac, Mercer admits, his voice tight. Captain Bishop is lying in a spinal trauma unit on Earth. She should be wearing these pips. Not me. I'm just the guy who followed her orders. McAllister takes a slow sip of his coffee. Then, he reaches out and clamps a massive, heavy hand onto Mercer's shoulder. His grip is like a vice. Listen to me, Cole. Sarah Bishop didn't give up her spine so you could stand here and feel sorry for yourself, McAllister growls, his voice low and intense. She saw the pilot you were, and she decided you were worth the sacrifice. She spent the last year building a weapon that could kill this hive. That weapon is you. That weapon is the 14th Tactical Wing. You aren't just following her orders anymore. You're carrying her legacy. Mac releases his shoulder and points to the turbolift. Now drink your coffee and square your shoulders, CAG. Admiral Quinn is waiting for us in the briefing room. The bugs are moving again. The briefing, the Leviathan threat. Location, Sector Command, Starbase 12. The doors slide open, and Mercer walks in alongside McAllister. Admiral Quinn is already standing at the holographic tactical table, surrounded by a few other task force captains. The USS Challenger is still the flagship, but today they are planning the theater-wide strategy. Commander Mercer, Quinn nods as Cole takes his place at the table. Glad you could join us. Let's get straight to it. Quinn taps the console. The holographic map of the Cardassian/Federation border flares to life. The massive subspace inhibitor net, the wall Bishop broke, is shown as a series of fragmented, broken lines. Because of the strike at the Tarquin Gap and the subsequent push by our fleets, the Hive's static defense net is failing, Quinn explains. They can no longer maintain a solid border. But the Hive mind adapts quickly. Since they can't build a wall, they are bringing the wall to us. The map zooms in on a volatile, swirling purple and red region known as the Typhon Rift. Long-range sensors have detected a new class of Hive vessel operating in the rift. Vry's voice chimes in over the comms from the Challenger. A blurry, terrifying schematic appears. It is a starship, but it is grotesque, easily twice the size of a Romulan warbird, covered in organic-looking armor plating and massive launch bays. We are calling them Leviathans, Quinn says grimly. They are mobile brood ships. Mobile shipyards. They dive into radiation-heavy zones like the Typhon Rift, drop temporary subspace inhibitors to blind our sensors, and churn out hundreds of Hideki and Scorpion fighters right on our doorstep. A floating hornet's nest, McAllister grunts. Quinn looks at Mercer. If that Leviathan finishes its production cycle, it will flood the sector with enough fighters to overwhelm Starbase 12. We need to destroy it before it hatches. The objective. Target. Hive, Leviathan, brood ship. Location, the Typhon Rift, heavy ionic interference, shields will be reduced by 50%, sensors will be practically blind. The problem, the Challenger cannot navigate the rift. The ionic shear will tear a Galaxy-class starship apart. This is a fighter op, Commander Mercer, Quinn says, leaning on the table. The Challenger will hold at the edge of the rift. You will lead your air group, Wolverines, Jackals, and Wraiths, into the soup. You have to locate the Leviathan, strip its localized defenses, and plant a spread of quantum torpedoes directly into its main production bays. The CAG's first command decision. Mercer looks at the tactical map of the swirling, violent Typhon Rift. He has 3 squadrons, roughly 30 fighters left, and a monumental task. The Spearhead formation. Keep the entire air group tight. The Wolverines take the point, with Jackals and Wraiths guarding the flanks. You move as one massive, lethal swarm. It will take longer to find the target, but when you do, you hit them with the force of a sledgehammer. Roll command/formation. We stay together, Mercer says, his voice steadying as he looks around the holographic table. If we break apart in that soup, the Hive's automated sensors will pick us off one by one before we even find the target. We fly as a single, heavy spearhead. Wolverines take the point. Jackals and Wraiths guard the flanks. When we find that Leviathan, we hit it with everything we have in one focus strike. Quinn nods in approval. A solid strategy, Commander. It limits your search radius, but it ensures you have the firepower to finish the job when you make contact. McAllister grins, a dark, predatory look. 30 fighters hitting a single point. You're going to crack that brood ship in half, kid. Dismissed, Quinn says. Good hunting, LCDR. Mercer. The Typhon Rift. Location: the edge of the Typhon Rift. Condition: extreme ionic shear, shields at 50%, sensors blind. The USS Challenger drops out of warp, its massive saucer section casting a long shadow against the violent, swirling backdrop of the Typhon Rift. It looks like a bruise in space, angry clouds of purple and crimson gas, laced with violent arcs of electrostatic lightning. Mercer sits in the cockpit of Wolverine 1. He touches the 3rd pip on his collar one last time, then pulls his flight helmet down, sealing the visor. Challenger control, this is Wolverine leader. Air group is green and ready for launch. Copy, Wolverine leader. The board is green. Give them hell, Cole, Vroy's voice crackles over the comms. All wings, magnetic release, Mercer orders. 30 Peregrine heavy fighters shoot out of the Challenger's hangar bays in perfect synchronization. Form up on me, Mercer commands, banking his fighter toward the rift. Spearhead formation. Jackals, lock your port stabilizers to my starboard telemetry. Wraiths, take the port flank. We fly as one ship. The dice roll, Mercer, command/formation. Skill, 5D. Difficulty, moderate, 15, keeping 30 ships tight in hazardous space. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 3, 5-23, solid success. The 30 fighters interlock their flight paths, creating a massive, chevron-shaped wedge of duranium and phaser banks. They dive into the soup. Flying blind. The moment they hit the rift, the cockpit alarms scream. Warning. Shield integrity at 50% and dropping. Sensor array offline. The view out the canopy is a terrifying, churning wall of purple fog. The static discharge across the hull sounds like 1,000 claws scraping against the metal. Listen up, Air Group, Mercer broadcasts, his voice cutting through the heavy static. Our screens are useless in this dust. We are flying optical and thermal. Switch your HUDs to dead reckoning. Watch your heat sinks. If you burn your impulse engines too hot, the ionic shear will ignite your exhaust and blind the wingman behind you. Keep your power curves smooth. We fly by the seat of our pants today. It is treacherous, grueling flying. Every pilot is gripping their flight stick with white knuckles, constantly adjusting their thruster output to keep from colliding with the fighter next to them. Mercer leads them through the treacherous currents, reading the subtle shifts in the gas clouds to avoid the worst of the electrostatic storms. 4:45 minutes, there is nothing but the storm. Then, Mercer's thermal proximity alarm blares. I've got a heat bloom, Mercer says, his eyes narrowing at the faint infrared ghost on his canopy display. Dead ahead. It's massive. Visual contact, the Wraith leader shouts. The purple fog parts. The Leviathan. It doesn't look like a ship. It looks like a nightmare. Hanging suspended in the eye of the ionic storm is the Hive Leviathan. It is colossal, a terrifying amalgamation of Cardassian architecture, Romulan armor, and pulsing, organic-looking resin that binds the stolen technologies together. Deep, glowing amber trenches run along its spine, and massive, open launch bays line its flanks. Inside those bays, The air group can see hundreds of Hideki and Scorpion fighters sitting on automated assembly lines. The Hive hasn't noticed them yet. The Rift's interference works both ways, blinding the Leviathan sensors to the tight, disciplined formation of Federation fighters gliding out of the storm. "They don't see us," Mercer whispers, his thumb resting heavily on the firing stud. "They think the storm is protecting them." The spearhead is perfectly positioned. 30 fighters, all facing the broadside of the massive brood ship. "Air group, lock all heavy ordnance onto their primary launch bays," Mercer orders, his voice cold and precise. "We are going to gut them before they can launch a single ship." "Locks confirmed, Wolverine leader," the squadron leaders report. "On my mark," Mercer says, his heart hammering against his ribs. The ghosts of the Tarquin Gap are watching. The combat phase. You have total surprise, and the entire air group is poised to strike. But the Leviathan is heavily armored. Each squadron will take a route on the first run, then shift to precision strikes. "Air group, break the spearhead," Mercer orders, his hands moving fluidly over the tactical board. 3 vectors for the Alpha strike. We saturate their defenses, then we pick them apart. He quickly uploads the targeting telemetry to the squadron leaders. Wolverines, we take the dorsal launch bays. Jackals, dive for the ventral bays. Wraiths, sweep the aft propulsion manifolds. Empty your tubes, then immediately shift to precision fire. Do not let them launch that swarm. Copy, CAG. Breaking formation, the squadron leaders acknowledge. The massive chevron of 30 fighters shatters into 3 distinct, lethal arrowheads just as they enter optimal firing range. The dice roll, Mercer, Command/Tactics. Skill, 5D. Difficulty, High, 20. Executing a complex split strike in 0 visibility. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 3, 5-23, perfect coordination. The Alpha strike. Mercer hits the firing stud. The silence of the Typhon Rift is shattered. Dozens of blue-white quantum torpedoes and brilliant orange phaser bursts streak through the purple fog simultaneously. The Leviathan doesn't even have time to raise its localized deflectors. Mercer's Wolverines hammer the upper deck. The heavy torpedoes smash into the massive, open launch bay doors. The explosions are magnified by the volatile Hive fighters sitting fully fueled on the assembly lines inside. Secondary detonations ripple across the Leviathan's spine, blowing chunks of mutated duranium and burning organic resin into the void. Below, the Jackals execute a flawless strafing run on the ventral bays, trapping hundreds of Hive interceptors behind a wall of twisted metal and fire. In the rear, the Wraiths cripple the beast's sublight engines. The Leviathan shudders violently, bleeding atmosphere and strange, glowing green fluids into the storm. The shift to precision. But the Hive mind is terrifyingly resilient. Even as its hull burns, the Leviathan adapts. Amber disruptor turrets, hidden beneath layers of bio-armor, snap open and begin filling the space around the brood ship with a chaotic web of automated defensive fire. Worse, the organic resin on the hull begins to actively crawl toward the breaches, hardening instantly to seal the launch bays and extinguish the fires. The Alpha run is spent. Shift to precision strikes. Mercer barks, throwing his Peregrine into a punishing barrel roll to avoid a disruptor beam that melts through the fog. Pick your shots. Target the bioresin nodes. Stop it from healing. Mercer pulls out of the roll and locks his eyes on the Leviathan's primary command spire. It's heavily shielded, but the armor around its base was cracked by the first volley. "Wolverine 2, cover my 6, Mercer says, his voice dropping into the icy calm of a natural predator. "I'm taking the head." He pushes the throttle forward, diving straight into the teeth of the Leviathan's point defense grid. The dice roll, Mercer, Gunnery. Skill, 6D+1, Ace Marksman. Difficulty, very difficult, 25, threading a needle through heavy flak. Roll, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4 wild. +1 dash, wild explodes, 3. Total, 5 + 6 + 4 + 5 + 6 + 4 + 3 + 1 is equal to 34, devastating critical hit. The kill shot. Mercer doesn't just fly, he dances. He slips his heavy fighter through the grid of amber death with millimeter precision. He waits until he is almost close enough to scrape his hull against the Leviathan's armor. He targets the hairline fracture at the base of the command spire. Thwack, thwack, thwack. He fires a perfectly timed, 3-burst pulse from his phaser cannons. The first 2 shots strip away the localized shielding and widen the crack. The third shot, a microquantum torpedo, slides directly through the opening and detonates deep inside the spire's central processing cortex. The entire command structure of the Leviathan blows outward in a silent, blinding flash. The automated disruptor turrets instantly go dead. The crawling bioresin stops moving. The massive brood ship goes dark, drifting listlessly into the swirling currents of the Typhon Rift. Target destroyed, Mercer breathes, pulling his fighter up into a steep climb. Incredible shot, CAG, Wraith leader cheers over the comms. The beast is dead. The complication. But the celebration is cut short. Wolverine leader, I'm reading a massive energy spike from the Leviathan's core, Wolverine 2 warns urgently. It's a failsafe. The Hive is initiating a self-destruct sequence, and it's drawing ambient ionic energy from the storm to amplify the blast. Mercer looks at his tactical board. The dead Leviathan is glowing with an intense, sickly white light. If that core breaches in the middle of an ionic storm, the chain reaction will ignite the entire Typhon Rift. The explosion will be large enough to vaporize not just the air group, but the USS Challenger waiting on the edge of the storm. Air group, we need to vent that core before it reaches critical mass. Mercer orders. The Leviathan is dead, but it's now a ticking time bomb the size of a moon. I go with option 3, the internal sabotage, the boarding action, cover me. I'm going in. Mercer lands his Peregrine in one of the ruined launch bays, pops the canopy, and enters the dying Hive ship on foot with a tricorder and a phaser rifle to manually sever the main power conduits. Roll dexterity/technical, highly dangerous, classic hero moment. But I command everyone else to get out and warn the Challenger. Negative, air group. Do not lock tractor beams, Mercer barks, his voice suddenly dropping into a terrifyingly calm register. If that core breaches while you're tethered to it, it'll vaporize all of you. Break formation. Get clear of the rift and warn the Challenger to raise maximum shields. CAG, you can't be serious. Wolverine 2 yells over the comms. We aren't leaving you. That is a direct order, Lieutenant. Mercer snaps, pulling rank with a ferocity he didn't know he had. You get these pilots back to the barn. I am going in to pull the plug. Move. There is a fraction of a second of dead air. Then, discipline wins out. Copy that, actual. Wolverines, Jackals, Wraiths, form up. Full impulse to the edge of the storm. Through his canopy, Mercer watches his 30 fighters bank hard, their impulse trails glowing bright against the purple fog as they flee. He is completely alone. The belly of the beast. Mercer brings his Peregrine around, aiming for the jagged, smoking cavern of the dorsal launch bay he just blew open. He slams the fighter down hard onto the deck, the landing skid screeching against warped Cardassian duranium and sizzling bioresin. He unbuckles his flight harness and grabs the emergency EVA kit from behind his seat. He slaps a rebreather mask over his face, grabs a Type 3 phaser rifle, and pops the canopy. The atmosphere in the bay is toxic, a mix of venting plasma, ozone, and a sickening, sweet smell like rotting meat. The gravity plating is flickering, making Mercer's boots feel heavy 1 second and dangerously light the next. He switches on his shoulder lamp. The beam cuts through the smoke, illuminating the grotesque fusion of the Hive. Cardassian bulkheads are covered in thick, pulsing veins of organic matter. Dead, drone-like bodies, some Cardassian, some Romulan, all with void-black eyes, float in the zero-G pockets. Mercer pulls out his tricorder. Core overload in 3 minutes, he mutters to himself. He sprints down the main arterial corridor toward engineering. The ship groans around him, the hull buckling under the pressure of the ambient ionic storm outside. He hits a set of blast doors sealed shut by hardened resin. He doesn't hesitate. He sets his phaser rifle to maximum yield and blasts a hole straight through it, diving through the molten edges. The defusal. He breaches the main engineering chamber. It is a massive, cathedral-like space dominated by a stolen Romulan artificial singularity core. But the Hive has mutated it. They are channeling the Typhon Rift's raw electrostatic energy directly into the Singularity, force-feeding it until it bursts. The core is glowing a blinding, unstable white. 2 minutes, the tricorder chirps. Mercer needs to sever the primary intake valves. They aren't mechanical anymore. They are massive, fleshy conduits pulsing with white-hot energy. The dice roll, Mercer, technical/dexterity. Skill, 3D, tech. Difficulty, very difficult, 20. Sabotaging alien biotech under an extreme time limit. Roll, 5, 6, 3, 6, wild. Dash, reroll wild die dash, 4. Total, 5 plus 6 plus 3 plus 6 plus 4 is equal to 24, success. Mercer leaps onto the main engineering gantry, the magnetic soles of his boots clamping down just as the gravity plating completely fails. He aims his phaser rifle at the primary bio-conduit feeding the storm's energy into the core. If he just blasts it, the feedback loop will detonate the ship immediately. He has to sever it cleanly, like a surgeon. He drops the rifle's beam width to a razor-thin cutting setting. Sweat pours down his face under the rebreather mask. He holds the trigger, slicing through the thick, organic armor of the conduit. Sparks and acidic green blood spray out, sizzling against his flight suit. Come on, come on. With a sickening schlup, the main conduit severs. The blinding white light of the Singularity core instantly stutters. Deprived of the storm's fuel, the self-destruct sequence collapses. The core violently vents its built-up plasma harmlessly through the ship's exhaust manifolds, sending a massive shockwave of normal energy out into the rift, but preventing the chain reaction. The escape. But the venting plasma is tearing the dead Leviathan apart from the inside. 30 seconds to structural failure, the tricorder warns. Mercer slings the rifle over his back and runs. The deck is violently shaking. Bulkheads are collapsing around him. He hits the launch bay just as the ceiling begins to cave in. He leaps into the cockpit of his Peregrine, slams the canopy shut, and punches the magnetic launch clamps. He blasts out of the bay on full thrusters just as the Leviathan cracks down the middle. Behind him, the massive Hive brood ship splits into 3 dead, burning chunks of debris, swallowed instantly by the purple fog of the Typhon Rift. The return. Mercer breaks clear of the ionic storm. Waiting for him in clear space is the massive, saucer-shaped silhouette of the USS Challenger, completely surrounded by the 30 fighters of his air group. They didn't go back to Starbase 12. They waited on the edge of the storm for him. Challenger Control, this is Wolverine Leader, Mercer pants, wiping the sweat from his eyes. The bomb is defused. The Leviathan is neutralized. A cheer erupts over the open comms from all 3 fighter squadrons. Copy that, CAG. Good to have you back, Vroy says. When Mercer lands in the main hangar, he doesn't get a hero's welcome from everyone. As he climbs down from his cockpit, McAllister is waiting for him. The old Marine looks furious. You went in alone, McAllister growls, stepping right into Mercer's personal space. You risked the entire air group's command structure for a cowboy stunt. Captain Bishop didn't give you those pips so you could play martyr, Cole. Mercer meets McAllister's eyes. He doesn't flinch. He stands taller. I gave an order to protect my pilots, Commander, Mercer says, his voice dead calm. I evaluated the risk. I recognized I was the only asset with the technical specs to sever a Singularity core, and I executed the mission. I brought everyone home. If you have a problem with my command decisions, you can log it with the Admiral. McAllister stares at him for a long, tense moment. The scarred Marine's eyes narrow, searching Mercer's face for the cocky kid who used to fly Bishop's wing. That kid is gone. Slowly, McAllister steps back. A faint, proud smirk touches the corner of his mouth. I'll log it, CAG. Good hunting today. Mac turns and walks away. The transition from wingman to commander air group means your downtime is no longer spent in the mess hall or the holodeck. It's spent in the CAG's office, a cramped room off the main hangar deck smelling of machine oil and burnt coffee. You are staring at a PADD, reviewing the requisition forms for replacement pulse phaser coils, when the red alert klaxon shatters the quiet. Commander Mercer to the bridge. Admiral Quinn's voice echoes over the comms, stripped of its usual diplomatic calm. On the double, Cole. You drop the PADD and sprint for the turbolift. The distress call. When you step onto the bridge, the mood is suffocating. Vry is working frantically at the ops station, and McAllister is gripping the edge of the tactical table so hard his knuckles are white. We just picked up a distress beacon on a heavily encrypted Federation civilian frequency, Quinn says without preamble, pointing to the main view screen. It's coming from New Halcyon, an agricultural research colony 3 sectors away. We thought they were too far off the border to be a target. They aren't just a target, Admiral, Vry says, her voice tight. Look at the visual feed. The view screen flickers to life. It's a feed from a security camera inside a colonial administration building. A civilian governor, covered in soot and sweat, is screaming into the camera. Starfleet, please respond. The bombardment stopped, but they didn't land troops. They dropped pods. It's in the soil. It's in the air. The crops are dead, the water synthesizers are clogged with it, and it's eating through the duranium bulkheads. Behind the governor, the reinforced window of the bunker shatters. But it isn't broken by a disruptor blast. A massive, pulsing tendril of amber bioresin, thick as a tree trunk, crashes through the glass. It writhes like a living snake, spewing a cloud of dark green spores into the room. The camera feed cuts to static. That was 20 minutes ago, Quinn says quietly. There are 4,000 colonists in those subterranean bunkers. And the hive is digesting their planet. The tactical nightmare. You move to the tactical table. McAllister brings up the long-range sensor data of New Halcyon. The planet used to be a lush, Class M green and blue marble. Now, vast swaths of the continent are covered in a sickly, glowing amber crust. The Leviathan we destroyed in the Typhon Rift was a brood ship, McAllister growls. This is what happens when those broods take root. They are terraforming the planet into a hive environment. Can we beam them out? You ask. Vry shakes her head. Negative, CAG. The bioresin is emitting a dense localized subspace interference field. And the atmosphere is saturated with those organic spores. If the Challenger drops into low orbit, the spores will clog our Bussard collectors and suffocate the warp core. Admiral Quinn looks at you. We can't get the flagship close. And we can't use the transporters. This is a manual extraction, Commander. McAllister points to the map. We are outfitting 6 heavy cargo shuttles for atmospheric entry. But New Halcyon's surface is now hostile territory. The bioresin has grown massive, organic spires, basically living anti-air flak cannons. They are shooting down anything larger than a fighter. The mission: you have to lead the Wolverines down into the toxic, terraformed atmosphere of New Halcyon. You must neutralize the organic anti-air spires, carve a safe landing zone around the colonial bunkers, and provide close air support while the shuttles manually load 4,000 terrified civilians. The briefing room. You stand in front of Wolverine Squadron. The pilots look tense. Fighting ships in the vacuum of space is one thing. Flying atmospheric combat against a living planet is another. Listen up, you say, pacing the front of the room. The air down there is thick, toxic, and blind. Your thrusters are going to overheat faster, and your sensors will be sluggish. Do not rely on your instruments alone. Keep your heads on a swivel. You bring up the holographic projection of the colony. The massive, pulsing biospires tower over the subterranean bunker entrances. The Challenger is going to drop us at the edge of the exosphere. We have to escort the heavy extraction shuttles to the surface. But how we approach those anti-air spires is up to us. CAG, how do you want to lead the atmospheric insertion? The defoliant, strike, science/tactics, we don't fly blind. You coordinate with Starfleet Science to modify your first volley of quantum torpedoes into localized defoliant bombs. You fly ahead of the shuttles, dropping the modified ordnance to burn away the spore clouds and clear a temporary, safe corridor for the extraction team to descend through. Roll technical/gunnery, a smart, tactical approach, but costs you heavy ordnance you might need on the ground. I want those spore clouds burned away before the shuttles even hit the upper atmosphere, Mercer says, his voice projecting across the briefing room. We don't fly blind, and we don't let those civilians drop through a corrosive acid bath. He taps the console, bringing up the ordnance readouts. I've spoken with the science officer. We are swapping the standard warheads on our forward quantum torpedoes for a highly volatile, localized defoliant compound. It won't crack a ship's shields, but it will instantly ignite the organic particulate in the air. We fly ahead of the shuttles, drop the payloads, and burn a tunnel straight down to the LZ. Like clearing brush, CAG, Wolverine 2 nods, a grim smile on his face. We lose our heavy punch for the ground fight, though. We won't have a ground fight if the shuttles dissolve in the atmosphere, Mercer replies flatly. Load M up. We drop in 10. The burn. Location: Upper Exosphere, New Halcyon. The Challenger holds its position in high orbit, safely above the toxic reach of the terraformed planet. From the hangar bay, the 14th Tactical Wing launches in a tight delta formation. Behind them lumber the 6 heavy extraction shuttles, blocky, heavily armored, but slow. Below them, the planet is a swirling angry mass of bruised purple and sickly amber clouds. Air Group, switch to atmospheric flight configurations. Mercer orders over the tactical channel. Lock S-foils. Seal all intakes. We're going swimming. The Peregrine fighters hit the upper atmosphere. The friction instantly turns their deflector shields a bright, searing white. The turbulence is violent. The organic spores in the air aren't just thick, they are abrasive, scraping against the hull like sandblasters. Wolverines form the spearhead. Jackals and wraiths guard the perimeter of the chute. Mercer barks, fighting his flight stick as the atmospheric shear tries to throw him off course. Arm defoliant torpedoes. Mark your depth. 3,000 meters to Cloud Base, CAG, Wraith Leader reports. Stand by. Mercer watches his altimeter plummet. Fire. The dice roll, Mercer, gunnery plus science assist. Skill, 6D plus 1, gunnery, plus 1D, science defoliant prep, equals 7D plus 1. Difficulty, very difficult, 20. Timing a chemical burn perfectly in high-velocity atmospheric descent. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 5, 6, wild. Dash, reroll wild die dash, 3 plus 1, pip. Total, 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 3 plus 2 plus 5 plus 6 plus 3 plus 1 is equal to 35, flawless execution. The heavy fighters unleash their modified torpedoes in a synchronized spread. The ordnance dives deep into the thickest, most corrosive layer of the spore clouds before detonating. There is no explosive shockwave. Instead, a brilliant blinding flash of actinic blue fire erupts, rapidly expanding outward. The chemical defoliant reacts violently with the hive's organic spores, flash incinerating them in a massive chain reaction. The dark, suffocating clouds are blown away, revealing a perfect 10-kilometer-wide cylinder of clear, breathable air plunging straight down to the planet's surface. The chute is open. Mercer yells. Shuttle Group, you are clear for descent. Stay in the blue. Copy that, Wolverine Leader. We are in the pipe, the lead shuttle pilot responds, his voice flooded with relief. The surface nightmare. As the Wolverines lead the shuttles down the cleared tunnel, they finally get a visual on the colony below. It is a nightmare. The sleek, silver duranium domes of the agricultural research colony are half swallowed by crawling, hardened bioresin. The surrounding crop fields have been replaced by a twisted, alien jungle of fleshy vines and massive, pulsing hive structures. Most terrifying of all are the anti-air spires. They look like massive, mutated redwood trees, but their tops end in gaping, muscular maws that glow with the familiar lethal amber light of Cardassian disruptor technology, synthesized perfectly into organic biology. I'm picking up the distress beacon, Wolverine 2 calls out. It's coming from the Central Administration bunker. But the LZ is completely surrounded by those flak spires. The 6 heavy shuttles are descending fast, completely exposed. They need a clear landing zone, and they need it yesterday. The organic spires flex, their maws swiveling upward, tracking the incoming heat signatures of the shuttles. They're locking on. Mercer warns, his hands flying over his weapons console. Air Group, we have to suppress that LZ. You spent your heavy torpedoes clearing the sky. You have your pulse phasers, your micro-torpedoes, and your flight skills. How do you secure the landing zone for the civilian extraction? The lumberjacks strike, concentrated fire, all wings, focus fire on the base of the primary spires. You order the entire air group to coordinate their phaser fire to physically cut the massive organic anti-air guns down like trees. It will take multiple passes, leaving the shuttles briefly exposed, but it permanently removes the threat. Roll command/gunnery. Air group, we're cutting down the forest. Mercer yells, hauling his flight stick back to bleed off his descent speed. Target the base of those organic spires. Concentrate your phaser banks. We chop them at the root before they can lock onto the shuttles. Copy that, CAG. Logging targets, Wolverine 2 acknowledges. The 6 heavy extraction shuttles are lumbering down through the cleared atmospheric chute, but they are sitting ducks. The massive amber-glowing maws of the biospires swivel upwards, tracking the heat signatures of the descending transports. Wolverines, take the north quadrant. Jackals, wraiths, split the south. Focus fire on my mark. Mercer orders, his HUD lighting up with targeting brackets on the thick, fleshy trunks of the alien anti-air emplacements. The dice roll, Mercer, command/gunnery. Skill, 5D, command, plus 1D, gunnery specialization, equals 6D. Difficulty, very difficult, 20. Coordinating 30 fighters to concentrate fire on multiple armored targets in a chaotic atmospheric environment. Roll, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 6, wild. Reroll wild die 4. Total, 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 3 plus 2 plus 6 plus 4 is equal to 30. Excellent execution. The Lumberjacks. Mach. 30 Peregrine heavy fighters snap into perfectly synchronized attack vectors. They don't waste time trying to shoot the glowing armored maws at the top of the spires. They dive low, skimming the tops of the half-digested Duranium administration buildings, and unleash a continuous, devastating barrage of pulse phaser fire directly into the base of the massive organic structures. The air is thick with the screech of superheated plasma cutting through alien flesh. The spires shudder violently, spewing geysers of acidic green sap as the concentrated phaser fire burns through their thick, resinous armor and severs their internal bioconduits. Keep pouring it on. Mercer barks, his own fighter shuddering as he holds the trigger down, sweeping his phaser cannons across the thickest spire in the north quadrant. With a sickening wet tearing sound that echoes even over the roar of the impulse engines, the first spire topples. It crashes down into the alien jungle, crushing a swath of the pulsing, resinous vines beneath it. Seconds later, the jackals and wraiths succeed in felling 2 more spires in the south quadrant. The remaining anti-air emplacements, their root systems damaged by the shockwaves and the sudden loss of bioelectric feedback, spasm uncontrollably. Their amber maws misfire, sending wild, unfocused disruptor blasts harmlessly into the sky, missing the descending shuttles entirely. LZ is clear. Shuttle group. Set them down. Mercer calls out. The 6 heavy shuttles flare their retro-rockets and touch down heavily in the central plaza of the colony, right in front of the reinforced bunker doors. The extraction. Air group, establish a perimeter. Mercer orders, banking his fighter into a tight holding pattern above the plaza. Keep those maws suppressed if they try to track the shuttles again. Do not let anything close to the LZ. Down below, the ramps of the extraction shuttles drop open. Heavily armed Starfleet security teams, wearing full environmental suits to protect against the toxic atmosphere outside the cleared chute, pour out and secure the bunker entrances. This is Shuttle Actual to CAG, the lead pilot broadcasts, his voice tight with adrenaline. We're cracking the bunker seals now. The colonists are coming out. But CAG, we've got movement. Mercer looks at his tactical display. It isn't reading ships. It's reading hundreds of small, fast-moving biological signatures swarming out of the alien jungle surrounding the colony, converging on the central plaza. Visual. Mercer snaps. He magnifies the optics on his HUD. What he sees makes his blood run cold. They aren't just drones. The hive has assimilated the local wildlife, but worse, they have assimilated the colonists who didn't make it to the bunkers in time. The figures sprinting toward the LZ are a horrifying mix of humans, Tellarites, and Andorians, their bodies twisted and swollen with the amber bioresin, their eyes shining with that terrible, void-black emptiness. They are carrying crude, organic-looking disruptor rifles fused directly to their arms. They are moving with terrifying, synchronized speed, ignoring the Starfleet security team's warning shots entirely. They're swarming the perimeter. Shuttle actual yells. Security teams are engaging, but there are too many. We need close air support right now. The danger close. Mercer has 30 heavy fighters loaded with pulse phasers and micro-torpedoes. But the assimilated colonists are closing in fast on the terrified civilians pouring out of the bunkers and scrambling onto the shuttles. Firing heavy ship-to-ship weapons into a chaotic crowd of friendlies and enemies is incredibly dangerous. Wolverines, switch to low-yield phasers. Single shots only. Mercer screams over the comms, hauling his flight stick forward to dive dangerously close to the deck. Pick your targets. Do not hit those colonists. The 30 heavy fighters of the air group drop out of the sky like diving falcons. They skim mere meters above the heads of the fleeing civilians, their phasers firing in short, surgical bursts. The assimilated colonists at the front of the swarm drop, their organic weapons silenced. For a fraction of a second, the pinpoint strafing run works perfectly. Then, the alien jungle fights back. The living flak. It isn't disruptor fire that fills the air. It is the assimilated wildlife of New Halcyon. Massive, predatory flying reptiles and six-legged leaping beasts, all twisted, swollen, and armored with the amber bioresin, launch themselves from the canopy of the alien jungle directly into the flight paths of the strafing fighters. They don't attack with claws, they attack with their bodies. I've got bogies in the air. They're not on sensors, their Jackal leader's voice is cut off by a sickening crunch. Mercer watches in horror as a massive, resin-plated flying beast slams directly into the port impulse intake of Jackal leader's fighter. The engine ingests the dense organic matter and instantly catastrophically stalls. The 25-ton Peregrine fighter violently snaps sideways, losing all lift. But as it falls, its massive momentum carries it forward. The burning fighter plows directly into the Trilene, cutting a devastating trench of fire and twisted metal straight through the charging hive swarm. The explosion vaporizes dozens of assimilated attackers, instantly relieving the pressure on the right flank of the LZ. Pull up! Pull up! Mercer barks, but it's too late. The air is thick with leaping bodies. The hive isn't trying to outshoot the air group, it is clogging their engines with meat and resin. Wraith 4 is down. My canopy is cracked, I can't see. Ejecting! Ejecting! Fighter after fighter is swatted from the sky. They crash into the plaza, the jungle, and the enemy lines. Every time a Federation fighter goes down, its detonating warp core or explosive impact obliterates a chunk of the hive swarm, inadvertently acting as massive, kinetic smart bombs that shield the fleeing civilians. But the cost is devastating. In less than 60 seconds, 15 tactical telemetry signals blink out on Mercer's board. Half of the air group is gone. The hit. Mercer pulls Wolverine 1 into a steep, evasive climb, pulse phasers blazing as he tries to carve a path through the living flak. A shadow falls over his cockpit. A heavy, six-legged beast leaps from the top of a ruined Duranium building, its void-black eyes locking onto him. It slams into the nose of the Peregrine. The impact shatters the forward sensor array and webs the reinforced canopy with terrifying, spiderweb cracks. Acidic green blood and resin smear across the glass. The fighter violently pitches downward, the starboard engine whining in protest as the beast's mass drags the nose toward the ground. Alarms scream in the cramped cockpit. Warning. Structural integrity compromised. Aerodynamic stall imminent. Mercer grits his teeth, his muscles burning as he physically wrestles with the flight yoke. He slams the thrusters to maximum, overriding the safeties. The sheer thrust burns the beast off the hull, sending it tumbling into the plaza below. Mercer's fighter groans, the airframe shuddering violently, but he pulls it out of the dive literal meters before hitting the Duranium deck. He is flying a crippled bird, but he keeps it in the air. Lost in the chaos. Down on the plaza, the last of the 4,000 colonists are shoved up the ramps of the extraction shuttles. Commander McAllister, who had ridden down in Shuttle 1 to personally lead the security detail, is standing on the ramp, laying down heavy covering fire with a pulse rifle. The crashed fighters have bought them time, but the smoke, fire, and toxic spore clouds kicked up by the explosions are blinding. The hive swarm is regrouping, pouring through the gaps in the burning wreckage. That's everyone! Get these birds in the air! McAllister roars over the comms to the shuttle pilots. But as the ramps begin to rise, a massive, resin-armored tendril bursts from the ground beneath McAllister's feet. It violently whips upward, shattering the duranium plating and throwing the old Marine backward into the blinding smoke of the burning jungle. "Mac!" Mercer yells, banking his crippled fighter around. "Shuttle Actual, wait. Commander McAllister is off the ramp. CAG, we are taking heavy structural damage." Shuttle Actual replies, panic bleeding into the pilot's voice. "The atmospheric chute you cleared is starting to close. The spores are rushing back in. If we don't punch through now, we lose all 4,000 civilians." Mercer looks at his tactical board. Half his fighters are dead. His own ship is barely holding together. The shuttles are heavy, slow, and loaded with civilians. And somewhere down in the burning, toxic smoke, McAllister is lost behind enemy lines. "Shuttle Actual, punch it. That is a direct order. Get those people to orbit now." Mercer roars over the comms, violently banking his crippled Peregrine fighter away from the descending shuttles. "Copy that, CAG. Godspeed," the shuttle pilot replies. The 6 heavy transports ignite their main thrusters, rocketing upward through the rapidly closing atmospheric chute, leaving the burning colony behind. Mercer doesn't watch them go. He cuts his impulse engines and slams his battered fighter down onto the cracked duranium of the central plaza, crushing several of the assimilated attackers beneath his landing skids. He pops the canopy, grabbing a Type 3 phaser rifle from the emergency rack, and leaps into the blinding, toxic smoke. McAllister!" Mercer yells, firing blindly into the surging crowd of hive-assimilated wildlife and colonists. He finds the old Marine 20 meters from the landing zone. McAllister is pinned beneath the severed, thrashing mass of a bioresin tendril. His armor is scorched black, and he's bleeding heavily from a massive laceration across his chest, but his pulse rifle is still clutched in his hands, empty and clicking. Mercer slings his phaser rifle over his back and heaves with everything he has, leveraging the heavy organic mass off the chief of security. "Come on, old man, up you get," Mercer grunts, dragging the massive Marine to his feet. McAllister coughs up blood, his eyes unfocused. "Kid, shuttles. They're away. Come on." Mercer half carries, half drags McAllister back through the smoke, firing his phaser pistol one-handed at the closing swarm. They reach the smoking Peregrine fighter. Mercer hoists McAllister up the ladder and practically shoves him into the single-seat cockpit. McAllister slumps into the pilot's chair. He looks blearily at the narrow confines of the cockpit, then looks back down at Mercer standing on the wing. The old Marine's brow furrows in confusion. He knows the specs of a Peregrine. "Cole, where are you?" McAllister wheezes, his eyes suddenly widening as realization hits him. He tries to reach for his sidearm. No, goddammit, kid, get in here." Mercer looks at him, his face perfectly calm despite the chaos erupting around them. "You're going to make it, Mac," Mercer says softly. He raises his phaser pistol, sets it to maximum stun, and fires point-blank into McAllister's chest. The Marine slumps backward, unconscious. Mercer reaches into the cockpit, straps McAllister into the G-harness, and hits a sequence of buttons on the flight console. He engages the autopilot program he compiled on the fly, slaving the fighter's navigation directly to the Challenger's homing beacon. Auto-return sequence engaged. Canopy sealing, the ship's computer chimes. Mercer steps off the wing just as the canopy snaps shut. The fighter's impulse engines scream to life, and the Peregrine rockets straight up into the toxic sky, accelerating at a velocity that pins the unconscious McAllister safely in the seat. Mercer is left completely alone on the burning plaza of New Halcyon. He turns around. The smoke clears slightly, revealing the true scale of the horror. Thousands of assimilated beasts, drones, and towering bioforms are pouring into the plaza. There is no escape. There is no rescue. The atmospheric chute above him has completely closed, sealing the sky in dark, corrosive purple clouds. Mercer checks the power cell on his phaser rifle. Full charge. He checks his belt. He has 3 thermal microgrenades and the manual detonator for the crashed Wolverine 6 warp core, which is embedded in the duranium deck 50 yards away. "All right, you ugly bastards," Mercer whispers, raising the rifle to his shoulder. "Come get it." The swarm charges. Mercer fires, a continuous blinding beam of superheated plasma that sweeps across the front lines, vaporizing dozens of the attackers. He holds the trigger down, backing slowly toward the crashed fighter. The Hive throws wave after wave at him. Claws rake across his armor, acidic blood burns his skin, but he doesn't stop firing. He fights with the absolute, terrifying freedom of a man who knows he is already dead. High above the planet, Wolverine 1 bursts through the exosphere and glides into the protective tractor beam of the USS Challenger. Down on the surface, the rifle clicks empty. The swarm surges forward, a tidal wave of teeth, claws, and amber bioresin, completely engulfing the lone Starfleet officer. Cole Mercer looks up at the toxic sky one last time, his thumb resting heavily on the manual detonator. He smiles. He presses the button. The warp core of the crashed Peregrine breaches. A sphere of pure, blinding white thermal energy expands at the speed of light, instantly vaporizing the plaza, the alien jungle, the towering anti-air spires, and tens of thousands of Hive drones. From orbit, the crew of the Challenger watches in stunned silence as a massive momentary sun ignites on the surface of New Halcyon, burning away the dark clouds before fading into ash. End of Episode 2. LCDR. Cole Mercer dies exactly as he lived, flying headfirst into the fire to make sure his people get out alive. It is a stunning, heroic conclusion to his short but legendary command. You have set a precedent in this war. The Hive is terrifying, but Starfleet officers are willing to pay the ultimate price to stop them. The Challenger has a devastated air group, a wounded chief of security, an admiral watching his best officers die, and a war that is only getting worse. The war continues on. Starfleet is not finished yet. The alliance with the Klingon will help to save that galaxy from this invasion. We will see what happens next week.